Good morning, or almost good afternoon. This is Jason Carrasco from Connecticut, talking about once again conservative politics, mafia history. I'm back. Um, Sorry, I've been about last week. It's been about a week since I've been on. So, looking to talk about what's going on. Congratulations to Donald Trump. Victory 2024. I predicted it. I predicted that he was going to win all the swing states, and he swept them. And he almost won some states too that I said he was going to come closer than what I thought. He took the House, took the Senate. The Republicans have the House, they have the Senate, and I predicted about 52, 53. And I said 52, it ended up being 53. And Trump ended up coming very close in Virginia, very close in New Jersey, almost won New Jersey, very close in Maine, New Hampshire, Minnesota. He won um, Tim Walls's home county in Minnesota, very interesting. Almost won New Mexico too, so he did very well. And you notice even in the deep blue states like California, maybe starting to become a little bit purple, he did very well. He actually flipped counties that were blue last time, now they're red. Here in Connecticut, Trump won Windham County, almost won Litchfield County. So what's that telling you? And he won quite a few small towns in Connecticut too. And this is without any ground game. Trump had basically no ground game in New Jersey, and he almost won New Jersey. And now it seems like everybody wants to become part of Trump now, his team. And just reading this morning on Fox News how the Bronx, New York, is could possibly being Trump country. How Trump did actually very well in New York. He won Staten Island, won Long Island, won upstate New York, and if you took away the four boroughs, Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, he won New York State. But he actually did very well in those counties, a lot better than last time, where he did very well in the Bronx, did very well in Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan. Even he actually, if you break it down, won some neighborhoods in New York, in Queens. Howard Beach, he won. Ozone Park. In Brooklyn, he won Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge. In the Bronx, he won Throgs Neck, Riverdale. So what's that telling you? Um, he's making inroads, and the Democrats really have a problem on their hands. They lost the middle class, the working people. Who do they really have? The coastal elites, the Hollywood people. Boy, that backfired on Kamala Harris, bringing out these Hollywood people, these celebrities. It showed how out of touch she is with the American people. That's all that did. It showed how out of touch she is with the American people and out of touch the Democrats are. And I'm not saying I'm a fan of Bernie Sanders, don't agree, but they have lost touch with the working class. There's no doubt about that. And I predict that good times are ahead for our country. Our country's going to be safer. The border's going to be closed. That's going to be resolved. Our economy is going to turn around. Trump said, drill, baby, drill. And I predict you're going to see a growth in jobs, growth in manufacturing jobs. And I believe our economy is going to turn around. The tax cuts are going to be extended. You're going to even see bigger tax cuts. And one thing I want to say, Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, I um, I have to give him credit, give Trump credit, pointing both of them to downsize the government. I mean, you have right now federal employees that work from home. We don't know what they do. Um, how many positions? You have two people for one positions. I think the federal government needs to be downsized. And I know the federal employees union, they're not happy about it. Well, too bad. You know, they had it too good for too long, and here it is. And I'm not saying there's good people in the federal government, many are, but I'm saying the workforce is bloated. We're paying salaries that we can't afford, benefits that we can't afford, and it's time to really downsize the size of the federal government. It really has to be done. You have to take an axe to Washington, D.C. You have to get rid of a lot of these lifetime bureaucrats. One time I used to always be in favor of civil service. Now I'm in favor of political appointees because the problem with civil service, you get these people in government and they're there forever and you can't fire them no matter how bad of a job they do. You can't fire them and you're stuck with them forever. And all they are is most of them foot soldiers for the Democratic Party. So, and you can't get rid of them. So that has to change. So actually, I'm more in favor of political appointees because you can fire them, you get rid of them. And I think we're going to have the biggest change in the federal government since 1883. Um, Again, there's a lot of Our workforce is bloated, very top heavy. The federal government is, and one person was telling me that under the Biden administration, it's become difficult to fire anybody. And this is a supervisor in the federal, very difficult to fire and um, fired anyone. It's hard to hold these people accountable. And the problem with the federal government too, there's no raises are not based on performance. Everything's based on seniority. So there's no accountability what they do. It's not like the private sector where your raises are based on your performance. Unfortunately, in the federal government, um, all it is seniority based. And just because somebody's been on a job 20 years doesn't mean they're doing any better of a job than someone's been there 5 years. They actually may be doing a worse job. And I'm finally glad that you finally have somebody that's willing to take care of the fourth branch of government, the administrative state. Vivek Ramaswamy said the fourth branch of government. And I give also Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk finally cutting size of government. You got people from the private sector that are very successful, and this is what needs to be done too. You're finally having somebody that wants to take on the administrative state. And these are people that make rules or regulations, and they're unelected bureaucrats that are not held accountable for what they do. And we finally have somebody who's willing to do that. And I know there's been talked about too with tax cuts, putting tariffs back in. One time, this country back in 1900, over almost 125 years ago, functioned on tariffs. It did not. We didn't have an income tax. I wish we'd go back. I mean, I know that'd be kind of tough to do. We should go back that way. But that being said, I know both Musk and Ramaswamy said that we could cut $2 trillion out of the federal budget. Because you also, everybody talks about the deficit every year, which the government just borrows money to cover that. But what about the national debt? You're looking at 35 trillion in debt. Nothing done about the Democrats. Nothing's talked. Democrats never talked about that, about any cuts in spending in Washington, anything like that. And when they talk about cuts in spending, all it is cuts in the increase. So when these left-wing loons there in Washington were talking about, oh, Republicans want to cut Medicare and so on. No, they don't. When they say cut and increase, so instead of the cost increasing by 10%, it only increased by 8%. See, that's Washington lingo, where it just cut in the increase. And also, I'd like to see some type of privatization of Social Security and Medicare. This has been talked about years back. I know George W. Bush talked about it. I like to see Trump bring down the table about privatization of Social Security, like Chile. That's worked, been very successful. And some type of privatization of Medicare, which, by the way, we're heading there where you have Medicare Advantage. That's a form of privatization. But I like to see Social Security where it becomes private. It's like your 401k, and you would, instead of getting $1,000 a month for Social Security, if Social Security was private, where you can invest the money, you get $5,000 a month. What's the return on Social Security? 2%. Listen, you would do better right now with money market. We're paying 5, 6, 7%. You do a lot better there. You do better with bonds. You do very well in the stock market. The historical return in the stock market's 10, 12%. You do a lot better that. That's what, 5 times the return that you get, 5, 6 times the return that you get compared to what Social Security pays you. So at least you should have an option. I'm saying everybody still has to pay into Social Security, but you can invest the money where you want. And people don't realize not only there's the employees that pay into it, but the employer has to pay their half too. And if you're self-employed, like in my case, you pay both. You pay both ends of it. So you're paying 15.3% when you add in the Medicare tax. But if you took Social Security, 12.4%. Imagine if you could put that money aside in a retirement account, like your 401k and IRA. People wouldn't have a problem retiring anymore. They would be set for life. That should be talked about too, about privatization of Social Security. That should get back on the table. Right now, it's just a pay-as-you-go system. Right now, you're paying for the retirees out there. What people don't realize too is the money that you pay into Social Security goes into the general fund, and then the government borrows money to pay for the retirees out there. So that's all they're doing. You pay, people work paid, think they're paying into some lockbox or so. No, Social Security goes into the general budget, and then in turn, the federal government borrows money to pay the retirees out there. Boy, if any corporation did that, private corporation, they'd be in big trouble. The CEOs would probably end up in jail for that, and the CFOs of the company. But the federal government can get away because they make the rules. And I think this is what people are tired of too. Like they're tired of the lawfare against Trump. And I like to see, hopefully, that judge in New York comes to his senses. Judge Merchan will come to his senses. Which, by the way, he was a Democrat. I mean, he was a supporter of the Democratic Party. So it was obvious where his bias was. But maybe he'll finally come to his senses and just dismiss this case because the Supreme Court blew a hole into that case and all the other cases. So I like to see um, that case finally get dismissed against Trump and stop this lawfare, stop the FBI spying on people. And I think that's what people were afraid of too. Now everybody's coming out; they're all for Trump. Thankfully, they are. You know, you've seen coming out; they're all for Trump. I think people were very scared of the federal government and the FBI. Remember the FBI going after parents, calling them terrorists because they speak out at a school board meeting against transgender studies. Really, because they don't want boys using a girl's bathroom, you know, things of that sort. They don't want boys playing in girls' sports and girls getting hurt. And for the FBI to do that, that's pretty scary. I think this is why a lot of people were afraid to speak out, saying they're all favor of Trump, the Republicans. But people are finally coming out now. And I think a lot of blue states are becoming purple. And the Democrats are just in a disarray. They are in a disarray. They have problems. And the Attorney General here in Connecticut, Tong, I believe his name is, here he is in my state. He wants to go after Trump and everything. And then you have Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. All this resistance they're putting up. Well, I think Pritzker, he's trying out a test run for president in 2028. But, you know, instead of working with Trump and everything, instead of coming to her senses saying, hey, the people don't want these illegals here. They want these migrants or the illegal aliens, whatever you want to call them, illegal immigrants. They don't want these people here. They should be deported. They're breaking the law. And these are elected officials that are condoning people breaking the law. And then you have an attorney general here that's supposed to uphold the law. Instead, he believes the government should break the law by allowing these people. He's siding with lawbreakers all over law-abiding citizens. That's what he's doing. He's siding with lawbreakers over law-abiding citizens. You won't see it in Connecticut, but Tong, he should be impeached. He is a disgrace as an attorney general here in Connecticut. And you know what? Fortunately, the federal government could override the states. And what the federal government has to do, I don't care. These people have to be deported. And you think they would, this is what I want to get to too. You think that the Democrats would finally get it. Hey, let's go after these illegals here. Let's deport them. Oh, no. They don't want to listen to the people. They're ignoring the people. And these left-wing loons, they're a threat to democracy. They are a threat to democracy. They're the problem. You think the Democrats, the far left of the party, would understand, hey, people, they don't want these illegals. They're concerned about the border. They're concerned about her safety. Talk to Lincoln Riley's family. And I hope, by the way, that her killer receives the death penalty in that. And in Georgia, they do. Fortunately, they do have the death penalty, too. But she was killed because of Joe Biden's policy, because of the Democrats' policy. Obviously, these Democrats like Pritzker don't get it. And all they are is just want to put a resistance up against her. They don't get it that the American people care about their safety. You know, when is he going to get it, Pritzker? J.B. Pritzker. You know, he's a billionaire. He's got his big mansion. He could hire his own bodyguards and everything. Well, the average person can't do that. And I guess he doesn't get it. And all these other Democrats that want to put up resistance don't get it. And they should say, hey, let's work with Trump. Let's get these illegals. Maybe they would get respect. Maybe they would turn their party around. But no, this is all this is doing is this is going to hurt them. This is going to keep setting them back further. And like Newt Gingrich says, they're going to become small, irrelevant in a regional party. That's where they're heading. But the sad part is, I don't know if they're going to become a regional party. You know, states like New York, New Jersey are actually becoming purple. California has some, is starting to become purple. Connecticut here, he made inroads. And don't forget, Trump didn't have a ground game in any of these states. Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, California. Look how well he did. And remember the dream about flipping Texas? Well, that's not going to happen. They could keep dreaming. Look how much Ted Cruz won by over 10 points. All that money wasted there. What does that say? By the way, Mitch McConnell, Larry Hogan, that race there in Maryland that he lost, he had no chance of winning. Why don't you help Kerry Lake? Maybe we had another seat in the Senate. Maybe we had 54 instead of 53. I like to see Kerry Lake be part of Trump's cabinet. Too bad that she lost there and feel bad. But Arizona did go for Trump, and I think Arizona's, is moving to the right. And look at what Trump did, almost 50% with the Hispanics, 45, 50%, depending on what you look at. With the blacks, the African Americans, 20% with them. And that's excellent. That's excellent. That just shows that the blacks, the Hispanics, they're tired of these left wing loons in their Ivy Towers. They don't want these illegals here. They care about their families and safety. And these people start to see, the blacks, Hispanics, and your middle class whites, working class whites, they're starting to see that, the cost of living, how much it's gone up against Biden, how much it becomes difficult to afford a house, feed a family, something some of these, celebrities don't have to worry about. But um, fortunately, fortunately, the American people spoke out against the Democrats and the Biden administration, and now the Republicans have all three branches. You have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. The House, Senate, the presidency, and you also have the Supreme Court. So now the Republicans have all three branches of government. Now it's time to take part the administrative state and the deep state, get rid of these left-wing loons in Washington, D.C., push them out, and that's what has to be done. Needs definitely some downsizing there. And the last time the federal government had a budget surplus was back during when Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House. And they like to give credit, oh, that's the Clinton administration. No, the president cannot spend a dime without authorization from Congress. And all spending bills come from the House of Representatives. So the country had a budget surplus in the late 90s thanks to the Republican Congress. And the economy was good in the 90s thanks to the Republican Congress and the carryover from Reagan. Just Bill Clinton was smart enough not to tinker with the economy. And he was smart enough after the 94 election where the Republicans crushed the Democrats, took the House for the first time in 40 years, took back the Senate for the first time in 8 years. I think he ended up getting the message. I think Bill Clinton got the message. Something today the Democrats haven't got the message. And I think he got the message about people, the country doesn't want to move to the left. They want to move to the right. They want tax cuts, deregulation. And at least to his credit, he did understood that. And Newt Gingrich, because of a Republican Congress, and was, I believe, John Kasich at the time was in Congress, where we had a budget surplus then. And there was even talk about paying down the national debt too. And this was also the carryover from Reagan. Ronald Reagan started in the 80s, cut tax deregulations. Then he had a Republican Congress. Imagine if Reagan had a House and a Senate. He did have the Senate for the first 6 years, never had the House. Imagine what Reagan could have done if he also had the House too. And now, when Clinton came around, you had the carryover from Reagan, the tax cuts, deregulation. Then you had a Republican Congress that cut taxes, deregulated the economy, and that's why he had budget surpluses, I believe, the first time in 30 years. And those budget surpluses, you cut taxes, put it to pay the national debt. The United States has not been debt-free since 1834. That's the last time the country was debt-free, with Andrew Jackson. So I think this country could be debt-free. Pay off the national debt, and that means that the money that we have to pay off the national debt, we don't have to pay interest on debt anymore. And that's money that we're not paying in the principal, money that we're not paying in the interest on debt. We could use to cut taxes or to invest elsewhere in our military, other places. So there's a lot to be done with that money that we don't have to use to pay down, that we don't have to use to pay off the debt, both the principal and the interest. It adds up to a lot of money. So, if the country is debt free, which means savings bonds go away, we pay off. There's a lot that the country could do that. Cutting taxes, investing in our military, things like that. Boy, wouldn't that be wonderful to live a debt-free country? An awful lot we could do with that. Also, I had the idea of there's a lot of property that the federal government owns, empty buildings, a lot of land out west they're not doing anything. Sell that property. Let the private sector develop it. Even let the states take it over. Get back to states' rights too, but let the states take it over. This empty property, sell it to them. The states sell it to private companies, sell it to oil companies so they could drill. Like Trump said, drill, baby, drill. Sell off empty buildings, things of that sort. I mean, I read one time, it might be more, if the government sold off all this unused property, be it land, buildings, who knows, whatever else, there's 10, 12 trillion right there. 10, 12 trillion that you could put towards paying off the national debt. I think that number is probably even higher. It could be close to 20 trillion now, but there's a lot of things. We had all this unused property, the federal government sell it off. Imagine if you paid the national debt, even if you cut the debt in half, half of 35, 17, 18 million. That's a big thing. A lot of things that, if you cut our debt in half, that's less that we have to pay in interest and principal on the debt. If we had budget surpluses, we could pay off the debt in this country. Awful lot we could do. And when the budget surpluses, the president like to take credit. Oh, or they blame the spending because out of control spending because they blame the president. It's not always the president's fault. See, the government can't. The president does not have the line item veto, so they can't take things out of the budgets. But the president can't spend a dime without authorization from Congress and without actually authorization from the House of Representatives. So that's the thing. So when they try to blame, Reagan in the 80s with deficit, really wasn't his fault. It was actually Congress's fault. The House of Representatives was controlled by the Democrats, and the president doesn't have the line item veto. And, if you cut taxes, that's less revenue into the government. No, it doesn't work that way. Revenues increased. And during Reagan's time, from 81 to 89, revenues to the federal government doubled. Revenues to the federal government actually doubled when you cut taxes. Revenues increased significantly. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. When Trump cut taxes in his first term, revenues increased significantly to the federal government. And also revenues did increase to state governments too, because people had more money to spend. They're making more money. They're paying more in taxes. And that definitely helped the states too, which made Lamont look good here in Connecticut. It made Ned Lamont look very good here in Connecticut. And now with Trump coming in again, he'll extend tax cuts, which we knew, extend his tax cut taxes further. And you're going to see, I predict that you'll see revenues double to the federal government, and which means we do a lot with that money. Upgrade our military. That's a big thing with China being a threat and Russia. Upgrade our military. Pay down the national debt. Quite a few things. Show up Social Security, Medicare. Quite a few things we could do with that money. Getting rid of Department of Education has to go. And what should be done is get education back to the states. But there's a lot of states now that allow school choice. I'm all in favor of school choice, school vouchers. If I had my way, I like to see government get out of the business of public education and turn it over to the private sector, but have school vouchers. So parents will be able to afford to send their children where they want. At the very least, I believe there should be school choice. I take it a step further. Let's go to vouchers, which Trump's all in favor of school vouchers, school choice. But I believe in my personal opinion, take it a step further where the government gets out of public education. You sell off the buildings, everything, let private companies handle it, let them compete for students, and you have a voucher system. And yet these schools have to do a good job or else they'll go out of business, because failing schools are not out of business. And I think that would be a great thing to revitalize our cities. I'll tell you how to revitalize our cities. Have school vouchers, school choice, where parents could choose. Parents could then stay in the cities. They could choose where they want to send their children to school. If they, for inner cities that have poor public education, you don't have to send your children there. You have a voucher, you have school choice, you could send your children to private schools or other kinds of schools. And I think that solves this problem. If you want to send your child to a religious school, fine. You want to send your child to a school system, a school that teaches about transgender studies, fine. This ends that debate too. And what I say is you sell off the infrastructure, public education, let private companies take over, even if it's IBM, whomever. And you have these schools competing against one another. You have these little neighborhood schools, they compete against one another. And they have to do a good job or else they're out of business. Right now, public schools fail, they still stay in business. And a lot of the problem is the teachers union. And there are many good teachers. So this is not the individual teachers. I'm talking about the teachers union. They're far left mentality where good teachers don't get rewarded. All the teachers union does is support, defend bad teachers. We don't want teachers to get a bad reputation. Well, why do you defend these bad teachers? Remember about 20 years ago, what was it? And John Stossel did it about um, the school system, about teachers, the rubber rooms, how you can't fire bad teachers. And you couldn't fire the bad teachers for years. They're sitting in a classroom, they're collecting six-figure salary, and you can't do anything to fire them. That's wrong, a waste of taxpayer dollars. And I believe teachers should be judged individually. They should have a contract where if they're not doing a good job, they go. If they're doing a good job, great, they get raises. The problem with teachers, it's not based on performance. Everything's based on seniority. And that's wrong. And I think if you change the system, you'll attract better quality person to become into teaching. All the teachers unions put master's degrees, or you have to have what else? Certification. That doesn't prove you're good. These degrees, that's all they're about, the liberals. All they about is degrees and certification. And they basically indoctrinated Americans that you cannot get ahead if you don't have a degree. And I remember the public schools used to push that. Oh, if you don't have a degree, you're going to go nowhere. That's not true. I can tell you quite a few people who've dropped out of school, guys that dropped out of high school that are multi millionaires. So education isn't everything. It's only part of it, but it's not everything. But our school system is indoctrinated that to think that way. And they don't see that you could be very successful without an education. And I always see somebody go to school, be an electrician, carpenter, plumber, whatever, any of those, even from a woman's point of view, a nurse for a 2-year degree, a paralegal get with a 2-year degree, do something like that instead of get these 4-year degrees in gender studies, African studies, European studies. What are you going to do with them? What are you going to do with those kind of transgender studies, courses on Beyonce? What a waste. And this whole thing about paying off student loans always bothers me, because somebody that went to school for a trade that's doing very well has to pay off somebody's student loan that end up getting a degree in gender studies. So that's dead wrong. And all education's become, unfortunately, is a left-wing racket. On the secondary level, though, I like to see the government get out of the public education system, have a system of vouchers and choice controlled by states and local governments, get rid of the Department of Education on the federal level, but have vouchers and school choice, and you can send your children where you want to school, and schools have to compete against another. If they don't do a good job, they go out of business. They lose students and go out of business. Right now, they don't go out of business. And the Republicans, for some reason, were afraid to put. I'm kind of glad Trump's finally pushing this idea of vouchers and choice, and it's spreading. There are states that are doing it. Hopefully, it's going to come up there, New York, New Jersey, places like there, and you'll end up students will get a better quality education at a lower cost. And as for colleges and stuff, this financial aid, more finance, this and that, all it does is increase the cost of college, and college is going up by more than any other. More than any other commodity in this country, more than healthcare, more than everything. Notice when the government gets involved, the cost goes up. And the liberals have indoctrinated you where if you don't get a 4-year degree, you can't make a living. That's not true at all. And all education's become is a left-wing racket. You go to these colleges, you get indoctrinated. They don't teach anything. And there's a lot of jobs out there that don't require a 4-year degree. You can make more money. There's people out there who don't have a 4-year degree that make more money than those that have a 4-year degree. I mean, I have my brother that's an electrician, does very well. And I know a lot of people in the trades that have done very well. And they need people in the trades. They can't find people. And a lot of these state schools, what they're going up. Did anybody look at, liberals don't talk what college professors make, $200,000 a year, the CEO, these heads of these universities, what they make. Listen, private sector CEOs, that's nobody's business. If they make a couple, it's a private company. You don't have to do business with them. But these state schools, they're paid, they're funded by the taxpayers, and they're making all this kind of money. That's another thing I don't even like to see, even on the college level. The states to get out of the business of education, let them taken over by private companies, and you get a better education at a lower cost. So even at the state level, I like to see them get out of that business of education and let it being taken over by the private. Look, the University of Phoenix, or at one time, what, $20,000 for a 4-year degree? That's excellent. It's a lot less money than what you spend with a lot of these state schools or some of these private colleges that are astronomical. that you're not going to make any more money because you went to them. Yes, you do need college, you need doctors, lawyers, people like that, but we only we got too many lawyers as there are now, and we actually need more doctors. Of course, they're getting hurt because of what the federal government is doing and everything there. We need nurses, those fields, but I don't think we need more people to take up philosophy, African studies, European studies, things like that. We have too many lawyers out there as it is, and they struggle a lot and struggle to make a living. Um, but there's plenty of people out there in the trades that need work. And the left actually looks down on people, blue collar people, and that's very sad. That's the elitist attitude that they have, and it was rejected by the Democrat. Rejected. The Democrats were rejected by the American people. That's why the Republicans won. I think the Republicans have a good future for the party. I think the future looks very bleak for the Democrats. It's the same old people in Washington. Schumer, Pelosi, you got the Clintons, you got the Obama. Anybody new? You notice how the Republicans with Trump, you got Vance. You don't see the party. Mitt Romney's long gone. Nothing against him. He was one of these wishy-washy Republicans. He's gone. The Bushes are gone. Chris Christie, his time's come and gone. Unfortunately, he decided to go on The View, and he's been a disappointment. I don't have anything against him, but he's just been a disappointment going against Trump. Maybe you had a position in Trump's cabinet, but what the Republicans have had turnover. You see Trump. There's a future with Vance. You got Ron DeSantis, Swamy, Elon Musk. You have a future. A turnover, and Trump looks healthy. He's 78 years old. He's in great shape, and he's a youthful thinking person. He's a youthful thinking person. He sees the future of this country. He didn't like the way it was going. Thankfully, he saved this country. This was the most important election since 1860. Thankfully, he's won. All right, I want to finish up. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. I'll be back.